And Mark, let's move on and end the podcast with the best team from last year. Although, and I'm going to piss off Saint fans right now, and this is just a fun jab at you guys. Don't get angry and click off the video. It was a great year, but the ending was the real best part, right? Right? Real best part? I have to, my Viking fan in me has to give you one last jab before you use that
before they remind you of the NFC Championship game.
Before they use that as bulletin board material and kind of like that's the thing I want to start with is I feel like this team, and some may say I'm crazy for thinking this, I think this team is going to use that game, the hurt from that game, from that loss, because really they had the game intact. I was sitting there as a Vikings fan going, oh, fuck, another game that we lost. Like, because the last game I believe I remembered before this one was basically the one against the Seahawks, where we should have won that one, but Blair Walsh, boom, going to kick it to the left and miss that kick.
Yeah, why not?
In that really shitty game of a football game before we had our actual new stadium. I was even surprised that the Vikings won that game, and I'm a Vikings fan. Do you think this Saints team uses that as bulletin board material, uses that as a chip on their shoulder to kind of go through this season and have a successful 2018?
I mean, they can, sure. I think what it really comes down to is it just comes down to a dumb mistake being made by a defense that was young. And they have a year under the belt. They've learned. They essentially have gotten better. I mean, you look at the Saints last year. Great offense, great running game, passing game, great defense. The only thing that I would say, were really kind of needing a little bit more of is that pass rush, which they believe they got with Marcus Davenport in the first round. So they went and they got the thing that they felt like they needed.
Traded up to go get them, too. Like, they're not going to have a first round pick this year.
They made a big deal. Yeah, they made a big deal because they truly believe that Marcus Davenport, and it's not necessarily just him, but this pass rush is that missing piece that's going to propel them into a Super Bowl. And hopefully for the Saints fans out there, a Super Bowl win. They've got everything they need. I mean, really, you look at this offense, and it's phenomenal. Look at this defense. It's young, but it's kind of scary looking at the moment, and it's going to get even better. They've got such a great, well-put-together team that there's a reason why I was sitting there last year thinking that, hey, this team's going to win a Super Bowl. I was wrong, but that was my prediction at the time that they would go ahead and do it. Now, they have a very real opportunity to do it. You know, we're going to get into things like the schedule and all that good stuff, but you really take a look at this team, and I don't think that much has changed that's going to make me feel nervous.
To me, the biggest question I have for this team isn't even a big question because of who they play in those 4 weeks and because they still have Alvin Kamara. But my first big question for this team is, how are you going to do first 4 games of the year with Mark Ingram being out? Because this team obviously isn't at full strength unless they have both Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara out there. That's when I think this rushing attack is at its best with how they complement each other. But, yet again, when you look at it, Bucs without Jameis Winston, yeah, good luck, Tampa Bay, trying to beat the Saints team. The Browns, you should be able to beat the Browns even without Mark Ingram. Then it becomes the 2 question games where it's like the Falcons on the road, the Giants on the road. Those are the only 2 games without Mark Ingram. I go, okay, how are you going to do in those games? Besides that, this to me is going to be honestly the easiest preview because not even looking at the roster like in depth like we did for the other ones. I'm going to jump straight to the schedule and kind of talk about that, as I'm going to go on the same theme that I did for the other 2. AFC North, the only team they are losing to, if any, to the AFC North, they're going 3-1, 4-0. Because it's either, okay, what are you going to do against the Steelers in my mind? Like, this is a team, you can beat the Browns, you can beat the Bucs, or not the Bucs. Yeah, you can beat the Bucs, but you can beat the Bengals, and you get the Ravens. Yeah, it's on the road, but you're coming off of a bye at that point. The Steelers are the only big one.
It's playing a home game, though.
Yeah, and you're playing them week 16, so that might even be a win. The NFC East, I got them 3-1 right now. spoiler alert and shocker, the only team I have them losing to is the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles. The biggest question schedule-wise that is far different from the Panthers, very far different from the Falcons. Like I mentioned with the Falcons, their two just random games are the Cardinals and the Packers, which I think are very winnable games because the Falcons beat the Packers last year and the Cardinals could be starting a rookie quarterback. Or not the Falcons. Yeah, the Cardinals could be starting a rookie quarterback when they play the Falcons. The Saints, they get the Vikings in Minnesota, who, yeah, I know Vikings fans will say, yeah, we should have beat you so we can win that one. Still is going to be a tough one in prime time. And then you play the Rams. Yes, it's at home, but it's the LA Rams in prime time. So, I mean, for me, that's the big question mark. How do you do in those two games? And can you get a steal against the Steelers, get a steal against the Eagles without having a team get a steal against you?
Yeah, I mean, the Saints, they have such a powerful team. There's so many powerful teams in the NFC. But they have such a great team offensively and defensively. When they go in here, this is a team that can go 5-1, 4-2 in the division. Mm-hmm. It really just depends on how the Carolina Panthers are going to show up this year with this hopefully retooled passing game that they have. So how is that going to be an impact? But then it's going to be kind of some of these, I guess, the big boys of the NFC because they get to play them in the Vikings, in the Rams. The Cowboys might be coming back because just a couple of years ago now, they were one of the big ones here. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the Eagles. They have all these, and the Falcons are there too. They have all these teams that are really big, prominent teams. They get to go up against all of them. The only one they really don't get to have a chance to go up against is the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. So they're going to face pretty much any team that they play in the playoffs. They're going to see them in the regular season.
Maybe this is just me being a Vikings fan and having that bias come out. I'll ask you because you're the Bear fan and have no bias to either the Packers or the Vikings.
Well, I don't like the Packers.
Am I wrong in saying if I was a Saints fan, although Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, I'd rather play the Packers than the Vikings because the Vikings are more of a complete team than the Packers?
Well, the Vikings are a more complete team than the Packers. I need to see Kirk Cousins play for the Vikings before I can answer that question. Because if I'm sitting there right now, I'm always going to be more scared of Aaron Rodgers than anybody but Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. That's just as simple as it is. If I got the choice of playing anybody with the exception of the Patriots or playing Aaron Rodgers, I'm taking anybody in that case.
Patriots are also a better coach team than the Packers.
That's why I took them out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they get to play Jared Goff in the Rams. They're going to play Matt Ryan in the Falcons, Kirk Cousins in the Vikings in that defense. They're going to play the Cowboys with Ezekiel Elliott having his full season. They're going to play Carson Wentz's Eagles, or as we might want to say, Nick Foles, the Super Bowl MVP's Eagles. Which is a little joke. But
we got a comment on one of the videos, I think it was from last week or one of the preview videos where the commenter basically goes, so what, Nick Foles wins a Super Bowl and he becomes when did Nick Foles become one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL?
He's a Super Bowl MVP. No, it's just fun to say it. But he is as good as Peyton Manning
because he tied that record against
Peyton
Manning.
He can get one more Super Bowl ring, he will officially be as good as Peyton Manning. No questions about it.
Do you think that would kill Peyton Manning, or he wouldn't lose any sleep over it?
He wouldn't lose any sleep over it.
He would both have. Think about that. Eli and Nick Foles would then be better than him, or as good as him. Well, yeah. Eli's better than him, I think.
No, 2-2.
Yeah, but he beat Tom Brady. Something Peyton Manning could never do.
Sure. Sure. That's the one thing he's got on his brother. The only thing he's got. But he goes, yeah, but I was never benched for Geno Smith. So
True.
There is that. But yeah, I mean, the Saints here, they were such a good team last year. I mean, like I said, that was my Super Bowl team last year. I thought they were, when it got to the playoffs time, I'm like, all right, Saints, they're going to win it all. They didn't, but they did a lot to make you excited, to make you happy. I don't believe that Ingram being gone for 4 games is going to matter in the slightest. Buccaneers, Browns, throw it away. Falcons is this is the away game for you. So even if you lose it, I think there's a good chance you split with the Falcons anyways.
2 away games. The Giants is an away game too.
Well, I'm talking about just the Falcons.
Oh, okay.
because you're going to play the Falcons again at home. So I think if you lose that Falcons game, whatever, there's a good chance you're going to lose it anyways because they're a really good team as well.
Yeah.
You're not and you're not happy, but you're not upset if you lose to the Falcons. Now, if you lose on the road to the Giants, you might be a little bit upset as it stands right now because we just don't necessarily know if the Giants are going to bounce back with this new whole. Well, I mean, Pat Shurmur is the new head coach, but a lot of new things there.
And I'll be completely honest. Even if you had with Mark Ingram, without Mark Ingram, my thought about the first 4 games are the same. You win the first 2, you lose the third one. The fourth one, yeah, I could see you winning it. I'm leaning that way, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants won. With Mark Ingram, without Mark Ingram, that is my thought process for the first 4.
The defense of the Giants, to me, is not at a level to where I'm sitting there going, oh, I need Ingram and Kamara. No, I think you can win with just Kamara. Just fine.
That's why I'm saying with either or, my thought process is the same.
Falcons are the ones that have a tough defense.
I'm going to lean the way of the Saints against the Giants, but I would not be surprised if you told me, yeah, the Giants won that game. I'd be like, oh, okay. I didn't pick it, but yeah, I'm not shocked.
I'd be a little surprised.
I would. It depends how they were playing in those first 3. It's going to be week 4. What do we see from the first 2 years?
Obviously.
Our first 2 seasons. How's
I just
Saquon
say, as
looking?
we stand right now, I would be a little surprised if the Giants won that game.
Yeah, right now, I'll be honest. I have them 3-1 in those first 4. So it's not like I'm saying, ooh, they're going to be 2-2 in that. But I mean, for me, I wonder how much of the game that I am circling, if I'm circling one game on this schedule, it's no shocker which one I'm circling. Can you guess which one I'm going to say?
The Vikings game.
The Viking game. As a Saints fan, that would be the one that I would circle because...
That's your revenge game.
For me, it's not just that. It's based off of where I could see this team. That one game to me could be the linchpin in this season to where this team right now, their lowest that I see them is 9-7, 10-6. Their ceiling, name it. I could honestly, I don't think they will, but I could see this team being 13-3. More so if you said they were 11, 12 win team, I'd be like, yeah, I could see that. What, did they shock wins and get wins over the Vikings and the Rams or the Eagles or the Steelers, one of those winning playoff teams that we expect? But that Viking game could be the answer to, oh, we were 9-7 off. We would have won that Viking game 10-6. We could have been in the playoffs. Or will it be we were 10-6 and we were a wild card team? Man, if we would have won that Viking game, we could have been 11-5 and possibly won the division or had a better seed.
They have a bit of a stretch. I mean, they're playing the Vikings. They're going to be on the road against the Vikings. They're going to be at home against the Rams, but still the Rams are another one of those teams everyone's looking at in the NFC. Skip the Bengals. Eagles, you're home again, but that's your defending Super Bowl champion. I mean, you're right there in the thick of it. And if you really want to go a couple steps further, you got the Falcons and the Cowboys coming up after that.
I would say week 7 to week 13 is the stretch I go to, minusing week 10, because that's a for sure win for me because I'm not high on the Bengals. The Ravens, although I would pick the Saints in that one,
that's an upset
the Ravens
game right there.
Could be a trap game for the Saints. The Vikings and Rams will be tough because they're going to be... I expect both of those teams to be winning teams, playoff teams in the NFC. And then week 11 through 13, Eagles I expect to be in the playoffs. Falcons I expect to be in the playoffs. Cowboys I expect to be fighting for that 6th seed. Yeah. So it's you're playing week 7 to week 13. You're playing 6 games against teams that could have winning records at the end of the year and all could be playoff teams at the end of the 2018 season.
I mean, as it stands for me right now, besides the Packers, they're playing the rest of the playoff teams in the NFC in their regular season. They're playing the Eagles. They're playing the Vikings. They're going to play the Rams. They're playing everybody right here, and, of course, the Falcons. So they're going to see them all. The exception is that Packers team, and if it's not the Packers, then there's a good chance it could be the Cowboys, and they're going to play them. So or not the Cowboys, the Panthers. They're all right there. They're going to play all these teams. They do not have an easy way into the playoffs, but this team is so good, I'm very confident in them at least getting a 10-6 record.
And that's why, going back to my first point, I wonder if this team will use what happened last year as that chip on their shoulder to kind of muscle through this tough schedule. Because I'll be honest, out of all the teams that we've looked through in this division, this is the only schedule that if you gave me the last three we looked at, I'm going to take the Bucks and kind of throw it out because I don't see them being a winning team. The other three I can see them possibly being playoff teams. You gave me those schedules, I would look at this one and go, well, this is the one I'm completely throwing away because I don't want any part of that. I don't want any part of that one, mainly because of, and I know what you're saying, oh, Ricky, but the AFC North and the NFC East are the same. The division is the same. Exactly. To me, the biggest difference are those two games because the Saints get the Vikings and the Rams. We already looked at the Panthers. They get the Seahawks and the Lions, who, spoiler alert for me, both of those teams are not going to be playoff teams this year. This is the beginning of the end for the Seahawks with Pete Carroll. And the Lions, I just don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year in Matt Patricia's first year. And then with the Falcons, and yeah, this is a little Falcon history along with it, they get the Cardinals, who I'll take the Cardinals over the Vikings or the Rams any day. And then they get the Packers, who for the Falcons, they have a history of being able to beat the Packers. So that would be one of those two, Falcons or Panthers, would be the schedule that I would take over the Saints for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting, but no matter what, it's kind of difficult for any of these teams. So it's just going to kind of have to be you can't afford to let a team upset you in that case.
The Buccaneers.
You got to win those games that are your kind of easier gimme type of games.
Buccaneers,
make sure you
Browns,
win them all.
Bengals, like any of those teams.
Don't let anybody kind of sneak past you because that's going to cause a problem for you. Just essentially for a team like the Saints is you're good enough as is.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to kind of keep it together. Don't let something embarrassing like that end to your season last year. Don't let that stick in your head. Get past it and just move forward.
There's 4 games that you mentioned that, and then I look at the schedule thing, and that the Browns and the Bengals I'm still going to keep as Saint wins, but there's 4 opponents that I could see as like, don't go in and underestimate them. The Buccaneers week 14, because the Bucs beat you last year, and week 14 they're going to have Jameis coming back. And then Giants, Redskins, or Ravens. Like any of those 3 teams, yes, I would pick the Saints right now in those games, but I would not be surprised if week 4, 5, or 6, or 4, 5, or 7, because they have the bye in week 6, if you told me at the end of that week, yeah, the Redskins beat the Saints, I'd be like, all right, yet again, didn't pick that game, but I'm not totally shocked that the Redskins beat the Saints. Oh, I'm not totally shocked that the Ravens won. I'm not totally shocked that the Giants beat the Saints.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, it's any given Sunday. It's pretty simple in that case, but that's why I'm saying, especially in a tough division like the NFC South, you can't afford to lose these games that you should be able to win. You have to make sure that you aren't the reason why, you miss out on the playoffs, why you miss out on winning your division.
I will ask you kind of a loaded playoff question with this team.
Okay.
Number 1, if this team makes the playoffs in any place, wild card or division, how much of a Super Bowl favorite would you put them in? And 2, do you think this has to be a team that wins the division and finishes in the top 4? Or could this be a team we see be a wild card team and wreck through the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl?
I don't think they have to win the division. I think it certainly helps. It's useful, and I can answer your question with, as it stands right now, the Saints are my Super Bowl favorite.
Okay.
Still, even after last year, they had a fluke play is why they lost.
Well, they had a rookie mistake.
Yeah, and I think they could have beaten the Eagles.
That would have been... It would have been an interesting one. A lot of
it would have been
woulda, coulda, shouldas in that one of who would have won that game. Any final thoughts on the Saints before we wrap this thing up?
My final thoughts is go ahead and play woulda, coulda, shoulda in the comment section. Let's watch and see who thinks that Nick Foles is a better quarterback than Drew Brees.
Exactly. Well, Carson Wentz will be back. Don't put some.
I'm talking about
on
last
his name.
year.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying for this year,
That's Super Bowl MVP.
I expect
Nick
Carson
Foles.
Wentz to be playing Week 11 against the Saints.
Well, I expected him to be in the playoffs last year. But,
I expected him too, but let's hope he doesn't get injured like he did last year. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. Also, a little bit of housekeeping here at the end. If you want to help support the podcast, make sure to check out Most Valuable Podcast on Patreon. That link is down below in the description. If you like the cool shirt I'm wearing, you can get your own in the description as well. We got our store link down below. You can also get that store at mostvaluablepodcast.com. You could also catch MVP each and every day on our website, mostvaluablepodcast.com. Then last but not least, if you have Apple Podcasts, you have iTunes, make sure to give the Onside Kick a 5-star rating. It would really mean the world to us. And type a little something about why you like listening to the podcast each and every week. Mark, we are almost done with the previews. We got one more division, one more side of it. Two divisions to go.
Yeah.
One side with the West to go. So we are now officially 75% through our previews. Don't forget, next week we will also be doing a top 10 for a way too early NFL mock draft. That coming to you because ya boy 22, not Mark's boy, ya boy 22 went ahead and asked for it. So we said, why not? We'll go ahead and do that. Also, make sure to check out our NFL predictions. I'll put the playlist. It'll pop above Mark's head right now as I'm talking. But thank you guys for watching on YouTube. Thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.